Hi, and welcome to a Small, Medium, at Large podcast. I'm your host, Gail Heisen, bringing you intimate interviews beyond normal boundaries. I want to thank all of you listeners for liking, subscribing, sharing, commenting, following us on YouTube, Apple, Google, and all other podcast sites. I want to tell you about our special guest here today. Today, we have a guest from London, Jade Choon D'Cruz. She is the author of an Amazon bestseller, Divine Love: Emotional Mastery with the Winged Beings of Light. The book is an honest and personal account of moments in the author's life that presented great difficulty, but shows how the guidance from the winged beings of light provided her with the insight needed and desired to upturn one's life and break into one's power. Jade is an award-winning documentary filmmaker as well. She is a teacher of personal power and freedom, an intuitive healer, a Reiki master, Akashic Records reader, and the founder of Djed meditation, which teaches how to shift the structure of your reality. Jade does transformational and cosmic workshops and teaches online meditation as well. Let's welcome Jade here today. Hi, Jade.
Hi, Gail. Thank you for having me.
It's a
Really nice to be
pleasure.
here.
I wasn't sure how we connected, if someone had told you. I don't know, usually someone else recommends someone. I'm not sure how we came into each other's space, but I'm very glad that we did.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, I can't remember either.
I don't know how, but here we are, and that's how
But
this
it's
show,
good.
yeah, this is the way the show goes.
Yeah, it's good.
As if you've ever watched any of my shows, I always start with the childhood and how the beginning was for you. Did you grow up in a family where, they were religious or spiritual, or was there anything during your childhood? Like sometimes people have a moment where they experienced a deceased relative visit and they never forgot that as a child, or any kind of thing that might have pivoted you toward a spiritual path.
Well, my mum was very spiritual. So, I mean, I grew up, it's a one parent family, kind of. It's a bit complicated. Um, but yeah, very, very spiritual. So, I mean, although I have an Italian heritage, my mom was a Hare Krishna follower.
Oh.
Um, yeah, so I mean, and at the house was just always full of spiritual books and spirituality and I mean, really unconventional things. So I've always been around it. Um, but always went to church as well, just kind of it's what you do. We had a church across the road for community and friendship and stuff. Church of England, not Catholic. But I just kind of went really, it gave me something to do when I was a kid.
And
My mum would stay at home and I'd just go to church, something to do.
did you have a large family, or was it just?
No, not at all. No, so it's me, it's me, my younger brother, and it's my stepdad, but who I called my dad,
Mhm.
actually. He was a dad for me. But it's a very, very long, complicated story. So I won't go in there, but he actually went away for a very long period of time. So it was essentially just me, my mum, and my brother. All my family are in Italy. And I never knew my real dad. I've never met my real dad since birth. Um,
We have
and
something in common.
oh, right, okay.
I also had an unconventional family life.
Right. Yeah.
Also, my grandmother was a very spiritual person, and I also grew up not knowing who my mother was until much later in life.
Oh,
So
really?
I just find these stories interesting because
Yeah,
I wonder how we enter in the world, I think does have something to do with the paths that we go on.
for sure. For sure. Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. Um, yeah, I mean, exactly. But I never lacked anything. So I never felt like I was looking for my dad or needed a dad or anything
Mhm.
like that. My mum was very kind of, she did everything and, it was good. We were fine. We were quite poor, because she had left her family in Italy. She didn't get on with her Italian relatives who were very conservative. Um, and completely different. So you know, black sheep of the family came to London, had me. My dad, my birth father was a drummer. Met him in a pub, had me, and yeah, just sort of grew up in, you know, the kind of, you know, not very privileged part of London.
Hmm.
Just went, you know, but all good, all good.
Yes.
Very cosmopolitan upbringing, and actually, I think it helped me because I had a very unconventional upbringing. I was never pressured to be anything,
Yes.
pushed to do anything. It was just like, whatever, you know, just do what you like, which was good for me. So I ended up you know, making films and not thinking about financial security, but just being happy, flowy with life. Um,
I just, I
it
feel
was
like
good.
saying what a wonderful mother you had, even though I have
Yeah,
met her,
yeah,
and a
yeah.
wonderful
No,
way
that's
to
very good.
begin. So
Yeah,
I
yeah,
want to ask you about your film documentary life before I go on to the winged beings of light and your
yeah.
book. After reading your book, I have a couple questions about that time because you mentioned a few things that you were doing that during that. And now when I hear you talk about your life and that um, you grew up in a poorer area. I'm wondering if that was one of the reasons that led you in the different types of documentaries that you made.
Mm.
And for our audience, if you could tell us at least one or two that I read about in your book. One takes place in Kingston, Jamaica, and the other one takes place, I didn't know where it was exactly, I can't remember, but it was where you went and saw the marijuana farming industry because the
Right,
banana industry was being taken over by Europe and the US. And I thought these
right.
are both very interesting things. And
Yeah.
if you could just say what it was like, and is your background, was that your career choice then as you were growing up?
Yeah, I think, you know, I've just always been in. So the other thing about when I grew up was we traveled around the world quite a lot.
Mm,
So my
wonderful.
education was cultures and travel, and it broke boundaries of prejudice, stereotype, convention, class, and it made me quite fearless. So I always wanted to make films to tell the truth of what was really happening in these societies, which were being very stereotyped by the media or on the
Yes.
news, the danger zones that we're not supposed to go to. And so I'm all about doing that and bringing that love and truth up to shift perception, to shift how people view society, view others, create you know, that one community. Um, so yeah, that's my inspiration really. And
Uh, my husband's family background is Jamaica. So
oh
that's why I
really?
specifically was interested. I know he lost a relative to dengue fever and poverty and
Okay. Which
some
part? Which
generation ago. But
uh-huh.
uh he
Which
was
part
raised
is
in
he
New
from?
York, but I'm not
Okay,
sure where from Jamaica his family all came from, but
right,
that was his roots, as the West Indies, Jamaica.
right.
I'm wondering if you could just speak about, I guess you weren't able to finish this film, but there was also the film about the marijuana fields, and if you could just tell us a little bit about each of those, then I won't go any deeper.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so so first of all, I was in St. Vincent, and it's a very small Caribbean island, very insular, not touristic, wasn't touristic at the time.
Mhm.
And you know, I spent a long time building up. When I go and make films, I spend a long time with people. You know, I don't just go in and come out. I want to know and understand what's going on, and you need to develop a sense of trust, and
Yes,
they need to trust you. um, and the film was about marijuana farming and how a lot of the produce was that, you know, these people were turning to marijuana as an industry to be able to feed their families. And then they were being told by the US and their own government, you know, it's illegal, it's not allowed. While at the same time, the US were coming in and taking marijuana uh, for their own um, for their own demands.
yeah,
Um, and also burning some of the fields, which meant the farmers couldn't produce for themselves.
Mhm.
And these farmers perhaps used to work in the banana industry and that but couldn't because the Americans then start to sell bananas that are much cheaper than their bananas. So there was no competition. And they couldn't grow anymore either. So they were kind of lost with nothing to no money and no resources to feed families, not being able to send children to school. So I did a film about that, a documentary about that, which won many, many awards. Actually, it went to a big film festival in New York at the time. Um, and then I was consequently headhunted to put it on TV, but to shift it, to change it, to show the side of the Americans,
Uh,
uh, to go back and edit and piece some interviews with the police. And I said no. So I learned very early on um, that the media is full of lies. It's all taped together just to pull you the story, give you the story that they want you to think. And it's all delusional. It's
I,
it's none of it's the truth, Gail.
I,
Mm.
I'm not a filmmaker or any of these sort of things, but I was in the Philippines in 1989, and where I happened to conceive my wonderful son Richard. But at the same time, Ferdinand Marcos died, and the president of the Philippines. And in the United States, they were publishing all these things in the newspaper about the people mourning and the Philippines. Oh, they're so sad at the loss of this man. But I was there in the Philippines the day he died, and I didn't see anybody
Right.
mourning in the
There
streets.
you
I didn't
go.
see any of those things. They might have found one corner somewhere that they took one shot of a group of Filipinos.
Exactly.
And I said, wow, everyone doesn't really know that that's not what's really going on. I'm standing here and
Exactly.
seeing it. So
Exactly.
that
Yeah.
what you're saying, I just, I know that this is true.
Yeah.
Doing a
Yeah.
great thing by doing this exposure. And I've never heard someone say something about that a group of people were sort of forced into growing marijuana because it was all that was left for them to be able to feed
Right.
families.
Yeah.
That's why they were doing this, and it's so important that you shared such a thing as that.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
I'm glad you won the awards,
Yeah.
and you
Yeah.
didn't alter.
No, no, exactly. And it's really interesting because they people always presume drugs, drug dealers, fast money, that's all, and it's not like that. It's not like that. They just want to be able to put some shoes on their kids' feet. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Um, and yeah, they have everything taken away with them from them, usually by the bigger US companies that come in and just monopolize the whole Caribbean.
And
Um,
you had the compassion to know that you wanted to know these people. You weren't seeing them from
right.
any negative light.
No,
You were only seeing the
exactly.
beauty of their heart. And I
Yeah,
don't think other filmmakers go there like that. They're looking for
exactly.
sensational or it's just proud to know that you were doing
Yeah,
things like that.
yeah, no, absolutely. And I tell you what, it for me, it was to bring positivity to something that gets such a bad knock all the time. And to Yeah, to show positivity and love. And that in Jamaica, that was hard because nobody would go to Jamaica. No NGOs would go to Jamaica because of the gangster crime, particularly Kingston, inner city, Kingston. Nobody goes down there. But I stayed with people, and I learned that all they want to do is go to school. They
Mm.
just want an education. As everyone else all over the world, the right to education and to live a good life. Um, you know,
Yes, so, and I think also that it was probably so different for them to have someone like you come that was actually caring about them.
right. Yeah,
And so you were
exactly.
probably able to get stories or interviews or things that other filmmakers would not have been able to.
Exactly. Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
I've been in a few
Okay.
different
Yeah.
cultures,
Yeah.
and if they have to be very suspicious of you at first because of the
Oh
people who came
gosh.
before you. And it's wonderful to show that there are other people that aren't like that and that are really there because they care about the human being and their suffering and what can they do to help and show this to the world. So
Absolutely. Yeah.
congratulations on
Oh,
that and
thank
on
you.
the awards of that.
Thank you,
So,
Joe. Thank
uh,
you. Really.
I, I want to ask then one more question because I'm not
Mm.
sure. I'd like to know what happened to you that
Mm.
you speak about a black magic. And
Right.
I don't want you to think that I'm in any way not believing of any of these things because I've seen a lot of different
Yeah, I
things.
bet you have.
I have a friend here right now who's a Huichol Indian from the mountains of Mexico, and
Right.
he
Yeah.
said that a shaman put a very bad hex on his from some guy that he knew, and he's had to go through all this shamanic healing to get this out of his body. And now he believes wholeheartedly. He's not going to believe that this is an injury or anything else. He knows that it came from the negative energy
Right.
from what they call a dark shaman or black or whatever the word would be there. And I'm wondering what this was like for you to did you know anything about black magic? What exactly is their story? We want to hear this story.
Yeah, yeah. So the story is, I mean, as I said, I was very much in the flow, doing my own thing, very much enjoying life. And I didn't believe in anything like that. Didn't think anything could harm me. I was very spiritual, always very spiritual. And I just thought, well, I'm protected, I'm okay, I'm fine.
Mhm.
Um, and actually, what happened was it was an acquaintance who was very jealous of me because I was friends with her boyfriend. Someone I didn't know her at all. I didn't even know her boyfriend very well. She worked in the market, but she would always kind of pull me over, and she was always quite aggressive. And I felt she had a very hostile energy to me. And one day I just thought, oh, I'm just going to see what this lady wants because she's driving me mad. I'm living here and I can't afford to be walking down the market every day and being pulled out. And so I went to her, and she's just said to me, put your fingerprint on this coin. And I thought in my head, this is a bit odd. What the hell does she want my fingerprint for? But I did it, because I just thought, what the hell? Like, do
Right.
that. Never call me out again. Um, and the following day, I began to feel strange. Or maybe it was almost that evening, like my head was spinning and I was started to go around in circles, like I was walking around in circles. Slowly, every day was becoming very strange. And I started to be in my own world unconsciously, not really getting anything done. And I didn't the thing is, when you're in a spell, you don't know you're in a spell. And I couldn't work out why or anything. And then that becomes your normal. And then after about 2 years, I realized I was still in Jamaica, out without a visa, illegal, no money, and I couldn't get out. And I hadn't done anything. I hadn't, left this film halfway. And I said, what? Something's not right. But you can't think straight. And it continued like that. I eventually had to get people to pull me out, get me out of the country before I was caught. And My life from that point of this fingerprint going on the coin, it continued just like that for about 17 years. It
Oh
got
my
worse and
God.
worse and worse and worse and worse.
Is she
And
in England or in Jamaica?
Jamaica.
She was in Jamaica. Okay.
Yeah. And at the same time, Gail, because I think it was two things. So I had that spell, but because that happened to me, I was vulnerable, energetically vulnerable. That spell, what I know now in hindsight, capped my vibration. It's like it locks you. I don't know about black magic. This is just my experience of what happened. It blocks you, and you can't rise your vibration. So I was very energetically weak.
Mm.
And I had a situation also where one day during the day I fell asleep. I don't usually sleep. And I was taken to another plane. It was like an awakened, something happened. I was taken out of my body, soul went, and I was manipulated by two witches on another dimension who then took away my career.
Oh my God.
I had a soul, but yeah, they manipulated me into taking away. It was, yeah, career. I had to bargain it away. And I remember at the time thinking, but this isn't right. Like, I should be able to have a career and a family and health and everything I want. But they were, it was a strange, it was it basically happened to me. Um, and then I kind of woke up from that dream, or from that, which wasn't a dream. It happened during the day, still in Jamaica. And after that, things got even worse.
Hmm.
So the healing journey, I mean, I was in a mess. Didn't know what was going on in my life at all. Absolute mess. You know, I had been an award-winning filmmaker. I'd had great jobs, great opportunities, fantastic possibilities, and I couldn't get a job in a cafe. No one would employ me to even make a cup of coffee. And I ended up on state benefits for a really long time. Um, I mean, just all sorts of things nothing would ever go right.
How old were you during that time? Were you in your late 20s?
Yeah, so it's happened to me when I was 27 or 28.
That's the Saturn midheaven return. That's
Right,
when they say the
exactly.
most powerful things happen.
Right,
Mhm.
exactly. Yes. And so, that next bit, your 30s, is like your career bit, right? Couldn't flourish, couldn't do anything. Um, and I only kind of really truly woke up from this when I was like about 45 or 46. 2 years ago. Um, because it was I, you don't know what's happened. No one can help you. I don't know how to look for help. And I had to basically help myself. I had a divine intervention about 7 years ago because things had gotten so bad. I mean, I lost my home 3 times.
Oh,
Uh, yeah. And I also did really stupid things.
mhm.
Um, because no matter how hard you try against it, because on one level, consciously, you realize things aren't going right. And being an intelligent person, you try to do the right thing. You use logic and reason. However, it would always not work out. So your brain starts to go a bit mad because you think like, but how is this? I'm not stupid.
Right, right.
It messes up your whole belief system, your intuition, everything, everything. And who can you talk to about these things?
This is
This is the thing.
I experienced something like that as a teenager, which
Oh,
I
really?
possession, where I was
Gosh.
doing these, I was doing, for free. I was doing medical diagnosis for this group and this Werner Earhart back in the early 70s. And I was looking into a lot of people who were sick and they were dying. And I ended up experiencing someone attach onto me. And you can't, it's like you're talking about the invisible. So who do you talk to
Right,
about this?
right, exactly.
And it's very real. But if
Right.
you talk to a person, either they think you're crazy
Mm,
because they have no, and you can't, and you have to understand if they've never experienced it, just like when
of
it happened to
course.
you, you would
Mm,
never know this realm or these things could possibly even exist. And
right.
the reason I asked you about if it had happened in Jamaica is
Mm,
because places like Haiti, Jamaica, these
right,
places
exactly.
are known for having really powerful priests or priestesses or whatever you want to call that can be dealing with dark magic or
Right.
heavy things. So as I read your book, that was my first question. I wanted to call you last night and say, so was it your and
Yeah, yeah,
was so when did you so you were at so this went on I'm just so sorry that this went on for so
yeah.
many years.
Mad,
I
madness.
had when I reached out, it was actually my father who ended up helping me through that. And I
Right,
and
right.
also the things are simple when they teach you what to do to but when you don't know, it's like you're in a you don't know what to do. It can be incredibly frightening. So
Mhm.
were you
Yeah,
feeling
yeah.
beyond frightened at that point, or had you
You
lost
know,
yourself so much?
to be honest, I have to bring it back to my childhood, which was so resilient and so good and so spiritual that actually that pulled me through because not for one moment, um, well, first of all, I didn't realize there was a spell, but I always knew that I'd get through it. You know, I've always been very positive, very optimistic, very driven, very ambitious. So it's like, you know, it will be fine. It will be fine. And I just went like that.
Uh-huh.
Um, forever. It will be fine. Never was. But yeah, I was never depressed or fearful. It was you know, but I'd come to a point, I think this was when I had a divine intervention where, you know, it was the second time I'd lost my home. And I think things were just beginning to get really worse, really, really bad.
And
And
this was 7 years ago, is that what you were saying?
yeah, right,
Okay.
exactly. Yeah, yeah. And mainly because, Gail, although I was going through it, it affects all your families, your family, your friends, because no one knows what's wrong with you. Why can't you hold down a job? Why can't you do, you know, like it's bizarre because you can't understand the reasoning for my situation.
Mhm.
Um, I'm very taxing on relationships with family and friends. I mean, I lost all my friends, all my good friends,
Mm.
because my vibration was so low, you know, I couldn't keep up with their lifestyles, which were very, you know, they were progressing and moving forward. And I was constantly stuck in charity, let's say. I was forever the charitable one, the one receiving in lack, always in lack. And you know, I mean, they're very, very conventional, don't understand these things. But anyway, I was I had a divine intervention. I had the Archangel Sandalphon appear to me one afternoon, all of a sudden. And it was amazing. It was a holographic experience. And I had these amazing, I think they were blue or green eyes peering at me at the time, with a big robbing on his shoulder. And after that, I started to channel. That was back to channeling came in quite spontaneously.
I see.
Yeah. And then actually at that point things did not get better, but I started a cathartic journey of understanding what was happening and I started to attract help. Yeah.
And help on the invisible level as well as the physical level?
So help on no, mainly the physical level. It was still very much me having to find someone, but I had a shift in my timeline because certain events happened to me and I was led to certain people at certain times, and I know it's more than synchronicity.
Yes, yes.
I would go into a shop and they'd be waiting for me and they'd have a channeled message for me, and this happened a couple of times, and um strange stuff. And actually, Gail, you're the first person that I've said saying this to because I can, because I'm in this realm and you understand it. But the first healer that I was led to was actually one of the witches who had manipulated me on another dimension. And she
Wow.
had come back realizing that she did something wrong. and was trying to help me here on the 3D.
Wow.
So lots of really bizarre stuff happening.
Well, no, I never think of them as, I always think of those as meant to be's, not, they're not accidental, they're not coincidences. They're laid
Yeah,
out there before us.
right.
And sometimes people just, like, they don't even acknowledge it. They think, oh no, that was nothing. They don't realize the
Mm,
importance of that presenting itself at that time.
mm,
So
mhm,
you
mhm,
grabbed those
mhm.
positive things and started changing what had been happening to you. You found the one of the, she did, and so she, in a certain way, she must have apologized to you for what she did.
Well, do you know, she didn't, what's interesting is I'm not sure she realized what she did,
Mhm.
or in terms of like in her conscious level here in the 3D, she wasn't aware of it being her that manipulated me,
Ah,
although she knows that she knew me on another dimension,
mhm.
um, because she was very psychic. And she had told me what happened to me. She was the one who said, "Oh, you spell fingerprint, blah blah blah," without me even telling her what happened. She began me on that journey to release the spell piece of it. But she'd also said to me, I know I've done something wrong to you. I know you and I recognize you. And I knew her immediately because she was exactly the same face as the witch that had appeared to me on that in that dimension.
That's pretty
Exactly the
amazing.
same person. Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. So
Yeah.
then, so I feel like the healing has begun then and before. And when did you come to the place of, I couldn't understand the timeline exactly.
Mm.
Was it many years that you were receiving this channeling and then you decided to write this book? Or how did this, what's the timeline? How did this all occur?
So I wrote the book as soon as I received the channeling. In fact, the very first piece of channeling was the beginning of the book. I didn't really know that I was channel. I didn't know I could channel. I'd never channeled, and I was planning to write an ebook just to make some money because I've never been able to make any money. So I was at that point where I thought, okay, now let me just try an ebook. Like I've just got to do something. And an ebook doesn't take any investment, right? You just sit down, put your knowledge down, and put it together. Um, and this was around the time that I saw Archangel Sandalphon. And I remember probably the next day or 10 days later sitting down wanting to start this ebook. And actually, what came out was the beginning of the Winged Beings of Light instead. And I just went with it. And then I realized something was coming through. And I listened to it. Yeah. So that was the cathartic beginning
And
of
did
what.
you have a friend or a partner or someone sit there and write down what you were saying, or did you have a recorder, or how did
No.
that, you typed?
Yeah, just straight. Yeah, it was just literally just typing what was coming through. Yeah.
So as it was coming through, you were putting it into your computer at the same time.
Yes, at the
It's
same
like
time.
automatic writing, they call that, where you don't,
Yeah.
yes, that's a very known form of channeling where you sort of like you step out of the way and all the information is coming through your fingers, but you really don't know what's going to be written down there.
No. Yeah, exactly.
That's,
Exactly.
I've
Mm.
never done that. I find that very fascinating. So were
Yeah.
there more? Can you explain to our listeners what is the winged beings of light? I love
Yeah.
the name.
Yeah. So, so they're a collective of very high ascended frequencies. I think they are 11th dimensional. I can't, the 11th or ninth, I can't remember. One of the two, very high. But I remember when they told me their dimension, I thought, oh my God, I didn't even know there was like an 11th dimension, because I wasn't coming from a healing background. I didn't know any
No.
of this stuff, right? Um, And initially, it was Jesus that came through, and then I got Thoth, the Egyptian Thoth, Horus, um, God, creator, Isis, and Mart. So they're essentially the collective. So they are a mixture of different cultural deities,
Mhm.
but they work together in this collective. And they tell me that they're here to bring the golden frequencies back. So bring us back to the golden age, and they hold these very incredible frequencies of joy, passion, live your life, follow your desire, and they're bringing that back in. So that's the energy.
I reading the message of being one and being in unconditional love. It's a timeless message,
Mm.
and also one that for some reason has to be keep reminding people that this is why we're here.
Yeah,
That we're not here to
exactly.
we aren't really here to kill each other. We're really actually here to spread love.
Yeah, exactly. And just enjoy your life and have a good time, and not, I suppose, because what I happened had to me was someone being tremendously jealous because I was leading my life. I was free to do
That's
what I wanted to
exactly
do.
my friend, my Huichol Indian friend. In Spanish, it's called celos. And that's exactly what he said, that there was another person who was very jealous of the fact that, he's able to come to the United States and go back home and come here to visit and go home. And there was something of a jealousy, and that's what created his desire to hurt my friend.
Yeah,
And it's taken him a few years to work through what was going on. And
yeah, yeah,
when you go into cultures where shamanism is their religion and their doctor and their therapist and all these other things, you can speak freely about things like you're talking about, and to them that's, of course, they know what you're speaking about.
right.
But if
Yeah,
you were to go
totally.
to a psychologist or a medical doctor or someone else, they would say, well, maybe she's a little crazy, or she's got some issues, or
Oh yeah, I
like
know.
this.
My family still think that I need to see a psychologist. No, seriously. You need seriously. I mean that they think it's all. They don't believe any of it. Honestly, they don't. I know it's true,
Yes. Well,
but yeah, they think I need some psychological help.
the
So funny.
depths of where you were at when the divine came, I think that's when that most magnificence appears, is often when a person may be in their lowest uh,
Right.
point. My dad was in prison in solitary confinement, and he said three wise men appeared in his cell, and he thought he was just
Wow.
pinching himself, that how could these men be here showing him what his life of crime would be if he did not change his life. And the
Yeah.
visit of those three spiritual wise men changed his life. But he was shocked that and he said they had long beards, and he's just like you describing what they were wearing and what they
Yeah.
said. And
Wow.
that you can't enter into solitary confinement. There's no trickery going on there.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Wow.
But something about divine intervention coming at the time you most need it.
Right.
And I'm so grateful that that happened for you, and that
Mm,
you got to switch and move on to other things. So
yeah.
wrote
Yeah.
this book, and what was the purpose of you writing the book?
Um, that's a really interesting question. I think I never questioned a purpose. I
Mhm.
just had to put down what was coming through because I knew it was important. And I knew it was something for humanity. I knew, I thought there's something very powerful coming through and it needs to be shared. And
And
that was it. Yeah.
for our listeners who haven't read your book yet, I want to mention that at the end of each chapter is an exercise I didn't have the time to focus on doing all the exercises yet, but there's an exercise at the end of each chapter to help you open up into what was just discussed in the chapter. So it's not like you're being handed some information and then said, okay, figure this out yourself now.
Right.
You're being
Yeah.
handed this information and then you're given some guidance of,
Mm.
if you'd like to change this in your life, try following this idea or try this exercise. So I
Yeah.
think it's a combination. It's not just you sharing your story of what happened, it's also you offering possibilities for people to be able to work on
Yeah.
themselves.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's all about all it's a lot of there are a lot of different themes in there to help you shift um and realize that there's always a possibility, no matter how hard or challenging it's been. And mine that path for me at that time was really challenging. It's like, gosh, if I found a way out, you will find a way out.
Mhm.
Like, you have that, you will. And it's supposed to help people realize they are powerful. There's
Yes.
don't ever think, no, don't ever get depressed, don't think this is the end, because it's not. It's not.
I
And so
found
I help people to do that. Yeah.
I found when I finished your book, first of all, I had my best sleep ever. And
Oh.
I woke up with such a positive feeling of
Mhm.
uh, my own being, just being okay, just being whoever Gail is. And
Yes.
but in a really not, not in a words way, I woke up feeling it. And I
Oh.
felt that it was the influence from reading the words I was reading in your book. And I was also grateful to have such a relaxing sleep.
Oh, that's really nice to hear. Oh, that's lovely. Well, a lot of people actually say with the book that when they read it, they feel like they've heard the voice before.
Mhm.
Like, it's almost they're familiar with the winged beings of light, on maybe on some level. And it's so empowering. It's just an empower it shifts them. It does shift readers, because when you're reading something channeled from the 11th dimension, it holds the imprint. So when you read it, the energy, immediately you absorb that very high frequency and the message that comes through.
Uh,
Um,
And when you finished writing this, uh, did you experience a complete, like, everyone talks about frequencies. It seems to be the biggest thing these days, and there's these things opening up called wave sound or something or other in different health places around the county here where we are. I've just been hearing about them, and they all have to do with you go into a room and there's these frequencies in it that are a level to do something to you. And then when you come out after 90 minutes, you feel so much better or whatever these things. I have a little box over here called a wish that I purchased through one of my podcast guests who designed and patented this special little device that has to do with setting a certain frequency in your home. And
Mhm.
uh, when I brought it into the house, I thought, well, let's see what does this. Well, when I put it in, it increased my sexual energy, and all of a sudden I had all
Ah.
more sexual energy than ever when I. So I had never, I'd never. It's only this year that I'm really learning about what the frequencies things are. It was not something I ever even thought that much about. I mean, I thought about the invisible, and I've done astral thing, and this kind of stuff, but I never
Yeah.
thought about levels of frequency.
Yeah.
Starting to see and feel it in my body, like you're saying,
Right.
acknowledging it existing. And when you feel those low levels, you can go into places, I think, and there must be the frequencies in there. When you go in, all of a sudden you're like tired, you could fall asleep, your levels go low, and then you go to say a spiritual place or a famous, a rock that's been known to have amazing energetic field around it. I never thought of it as frequencies,
Right.
but
Mm.
that's what I think this must be, because those affect me tremendously
Mm.
whether they're going into an old. When I went to England and went into these old castles and there was the torture places in the basement, I ran
Oh,
out screaming,
gosh.
in terror.
Yes.
I could
Yeah.
feel the, and it was like,
Yeah.
get out of there fast enough.
Yeah,
Just
absolutely.
like,
Yeah, you know, you feel when the energy is heavy and dense and dark.
yes, and then you go to, say, Merida, Mexico, and you go to the Mayan temples of the women's educational buildings or something like that, and you leave there and you're like, oh, in such a high elevated
Mm.
space.
Yeah.
So I think it's an amazing thing that frequencies that are it's invisible, but it's affecting us on a very deep level. And
Oh gosh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, that's why your environment's so important where
yeah,
you live. I mean, it's so, and I mean, if you think of, I know it's the government and society, they try to keep people in a very low frequency. There's so much density in housing, in places which are not, there's not enough sunlight, there's not enough clean access to air, and it keeps it keeps you down, it keeps you down. Um, and naturally, we are such high frequency beings. We are alive. I mean, we're just this beautiful, flowy, living consciousness, which is constantly proliferating and blooming. And when we get rid of all these bloody dampening frequencies, uh, we can just be in that beauty of our own being. Um, the wing beings of light are trying to do that for everyone, because of course when you're in your own beauty, you're not jealous of anyone else. You're just in your space. It doesn't matter what someone else is doing because you're happy,
yes.
you
So
know.
winged beings is a separate uh entity you're experiencing than the teachers that are coming through. Is that correct? Or the
They're
wing?
the same. It's the same. So it is the wing beings of light. They're the collective.
Mhm.
They speak either as a collective or they do speak separately as Jesus, Mart.
And I
um yeah,
noticed later you started experiencing a Native American coming through you.
that's right.
Can you speak a little about him?
Yeah,
All
so
right.
he's also part of the beings of light. Yeah, they're all like together. So this is interesting. I have a Native American who comes in called White Buffalo, and he teaches me about frequency and sound.
Mhm.
And I get a lot of information from him. And it's so interesting, Gail, because I've never had any contact with South American communities or Egyptian communities or anything like that. But they do come in. So I don't know, maybe I haven't had a connection in a past life or something, but I do have a very strong guide, White Buffalo, and it's all about toning, toning the sound of your voice, because your voice carries your frequency and your voice changes sound over your lifetime. Your pitch changes according to how stressed you are
Mhm.
or how exhausted or how happy you are. And if you don't have your natural pitch, you're not attracting the right frequencies to take you along on, your highest and best path. You're blocking um, because you're not able to call, and your frequencies not being heard by the ones, your natural frequencies not being heard on that same level, if I'm explaining myself right, because frequencies match, right?
Mhm.
So if yours is dampened, you're only going to connect a dampened one.
Right, because you're attracting it. I had a podcast guest name, if you have a chance to check it out, Renee Jenkins, and he's a sound healer. And he does sound healing, with like 30 to 50 people in a room, and he has an incredible array of instruments, but his didgeridoo playing is just really unbelievable. It puts me
Wow.
sound of didgeridoo and gongs puts me
Mm,
into a
beautiful.
completely altered state. Uh,
Mm.
so I started taking sound healing classes with him. I'm about to do my last class, and I just feel an affinity for that, and I don't it's just like you, I'm not musical, I don't have a talent to tell you what a high or a low is, or I cannot sing, no one would ever wanna hear me sing, but there's something about the sound that when you
Right.
let it come through you, and I take
Mhm,
away any judgment of whether this
mhm,
sound is this or that,
mhm.
it's a very healing experience to just be with sound.
Oh, yeah. I mean, well, sound is the first beginning of all, isn't it? It's the primordial piece. Um, so that,
Yes.
you can't get any more healing than sound.
They say that's one of the things when you're pregnant and you're carrying a
Mm,
child, they say
mm,
music that the child is feeling it, that when you listen
mhm.
to a symphony or you listen to any of these things, it's affecting the baby inside
Yeah,
you at the same time in a
right.
positive way.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
at my hour and I still have a few more questions.
Yes.
So if you still have time, I'd like to go
Yeah,
on
I do. Yeah, I'd love
question.
to.
Okay. So we've explained the masters, the golden frequencies. There was something that you wrote about, and I didn't know if this is something that I just don't know about or if it's, but what does it mean when you said the creator and something about the time of calm? I don't know if I'm even saying it right.
Oh,
KAM.
yeah.
Yeah, what is that?
Yes. Yeah. So Cam, it comes through to me as Cam. It's the Kemetic Empire, which is the pre-dynastic Egyptian times. Well, I think they probably did have a dynasty then. I don't know. Again, I'm not a historian, but it comes through channeling. It's a period where I think it's Egypt was, well, it wasn't Egypt at the time, it was called Cam. It was in a period of enlightenment and heightened spirituality. And so the winged beings of light, I certainly had many lifetimes in Cam, and I think this is where I also connected with the winged beings of light during that lifetime. And so what's coming through in the book is teachings from the time of Cam, um, which are very high frequency teachings, a lot of alchemy in there, um, and heightened spiritual consciousness. And they're trying to bring that frequency back. And I mean, in our day and age now, but Cam is the time that the winged beings of light talk about. So it's their landscape. It's a time which they ask me to remember, or remember when, you used to just be able to relax and lie down in the reeds or something like that, with the sun shining, and you could hear the sound of bees or something like that. They use it as a framework, but there's definitely a lineage there, because I have been told, and I read the Akashic records now also, um, that I've had lifetimes as not a priestess, but as a magician
Mhm.
during the time of Cam, during the whole Egyptian period. And it's a magician of the certain kind. It's the kind that linked to the White Brotherhood. Now, I don't have any conscious memory of any of this, right?
Right.
But I've been told this from so many different psychics and people who I've never even asked about. But they'll just say to me and say, "Oh, you were there, or you were there, or you were there." And I can go into the records and confirm it, but I wouldn't know otherwise,
Mhm.
you know. But the stuff that I'm getting in through the winged beings of light definitely feels like that's connected, because it's such a heightened um frequency with a lot of wisdom in there.
I You must go to Egypt.
I know.
I know you've been there, in an invisible way, but physically,
Yeah.
I I have 2 shows with an Egyptian, professor who's a historian of Egypt, that taught in the United States for about 8 years, but he's back in Egypt again, and he an Egyptian man and does tours. Elliot, God, his name's not on the tip of my tongue, but there's two shows on there, and he speaks about how Egyptians view death, and
Mm,
speaks about, some of the historical things about the Egyptian, and I think it would be good for you to check those out. And would
definitely.
like to
Yeah.
connect to him, I'd be happy to connect you to him if you just wanted to email and ask
Yeah.
questions or things, because he's brilliant on the history of the of Egypt.
Yeah, but yeah, I'd love to, Gail. Thank you. What's just come to me, it's so funny because I think throughout all our lifetimes, perhaps this is the same for you, it's like the most far away thing I could ever think of, right? The most, um, something just seems so distant and I've got no connection to it and no desire it's like almost been hidden away from me.
Mhm.
And I've been in oblivion all my life. I mean, I've never wanted to be a healer. I'd never had a desire to do Egypt or, South American shamanism or anything like that. And it's so strange that it's like everything that you are, or I was, or I am, was so hidden.
Mhm.
It's like I've been so isolated in this lifetime, really, because I don't know any of this stuff, but it comes to me from other people. But I
Yes.
would never guess it. I don't know, is that the same for you or other people? I mean, I wouldn't have had a clue.
Uh, I don't know. I found myself in the strangest places that never ever I thought, like, I didn't know I was going to end up in Mongolia, you know? It was never like on my list of, if
Yeah,
I want to go to Mongolia. I've never, I've traveled around to different places that it
yeah,
just spontaneously happened, and I took upon it. The Egypt was an invite from a dear friend of my husband's who was going to be retiring after 30 years of living in Egypt, and she was a Harvard woman who wrote a book on how to speak Egyptian. And she spent 30 years just involved with the people and doing whatever she could to help them set up businesses and whatever she did to help them. And she did tours, and she said, this is going to be my last tour. I'll be moving back to the United States. Do you want to come? So we
yeah.
decided to just go because we knew that was our last chance to do this with her. And I'm so glad I did not pass it up,
Mm,
because I have to say, I laid in the cement, in the stone, 2/3 of the way up in the Great Pyramid of Giza. There's a king's chamber that you go into. At that time, you could go into, this was a few years ago. And I laid, for whatever reason, there was no one but me and my family in that room at that time in the pyramid. So it was just the four of us, and some couple was coming up the stairs. And I told you I have no sounds. I'm not good with any of this, but I'm short enough to fit inside that
the sus-
holding thing. I'm not
sarcophagus or whatever it's
I
called.
don't know if you die, if that's where they put them when you die. I don't know exactly what the piece of this was for the king. But I just opened my mouth and sound came out like I had never heard before.
Wow.
And it was in 2/3
Wow.
in the middle of the pyramid. The people that were coming up commented when they came up about the sound was amazing. I could never reproduce that again. I didn't even know that was in there, like you're saying. And
Yeah.
like my daughter and my husband, they didn't want to jump into that thing. I couldn't wait to jump in it. My son was the same thing. I said, I have to feel inside this thing. Well, nobody's here that can say no.
Wow. Wow.
And
Wow.
so
Wow.
you must go. That has to be on. And I know that if you just put that out there, that it will come to you. You'll get an invite. Something will happen. You'll
Yeah.
have to, Khalid. That's the name of the first
Yeah.
guy on the podcast. I can
Yeah.
hook you up with a fabulous tour person if
Yeah.
you decided to go.
Yeah.
So
Definitely. Yeah.
um, we'll check that out after. I wanted to mention one comment that there were things that you wrote about in the book that they were just truths that
Mm,
when you read them, it resonates, because I'm saying, yes, that is how this is. And when they're discussing about certain things about our society and about how everybody's forgotten nature and forgotten to be, that it's okay to be still and quiet. We're raised to be 9 to 5 jobs and rushing and hustling and bustling and all these other things. So I had to just read this one sentence which said it was a comment about money.
Mm-hmm.
And it said, this methodology wraps around you like a ball of string. And I thought that was such a great visual of how, because that's how it is with the mind. Then just all of a sudden you need more, and then it's like a spiraling thing.
Yeah.
And I just thought that was a wonderful comment. So,
Mhm.
listeners, I think you will enjoy this book. There's one other question, and then I just want to mention so that we can tell our listeners about your website and the things that you have to offer.
Mm.
So I read something about, and I think it might have been on the website, but I can't remember where. It was something you called the Limitless Club.
Oh, yeah.
And I didn't know what that was. And I just thought
Yeah.
you might tell us about that and your online workshops. And if you have any upcoming talks or classes, because England and London is my second most viewed people or viewers of my show, and so they might want to attend something. So I feel like by sharing any of that, even though we're in the US, there are people in England who would then know
Yeah.
things you have coming up.
Oh, lovely. Yeah. So the Limitless Club actually turned into my Djed meditations.
Ah,
So I originally went with the Limitless Club, um, which is basically I'm I'm a natural at offering satsang. I don't know how I do it, but it's I just I'm able to just talk people through enlightenment and touch people with the way that I share things and do these very deep meditations, which I've been told actually come from Egypt originally. Again, I don't know how I do them. And so Limitless Club was this club of limitless possibilities that we're able to connect to through meditation and through the energy and through talking. Um, but I went with the Djed meditation instead, which um, it's like a little club that I run, and we have talks and speakers and all that sort of stuff, which I'd love to have you on, Gail.
so
Yeah, you'd love it. And essentially, it's about being more of who you are and being able to transcend the energetic blocks, the mindsets, and actually shift your reality through the techniques of meditation that I teach
mm.
and change your life. So that's why it's limitless. Yeah. And why did it go with the Djed meditation? Again, that was kind of, who knows? That came up instead as the word.
And that, so then people that would be interested in this can take this with you online. And do you also do things in person in London? Or do you have any like talking engagements coming up or any kind of events like that that you can share with us?
Yeah, so the Djed Meditations is online. It's every 2 weeks on a Tuesday in London at 7 o'clock, on Zoom. Anyone can join. And um I do one-to-one healing sessions. It's just a lot of energy work. I do different techniques and talks. I actually just give them in the Djed meditations. Yeah, we do talk about a lot. It's quite a metaphysical group, and we talk about, all sorts of things. Everything you can imagine. But yeah, I mean that's yeah, the best place to find me is really on my website. I do run courses sometimes. I give Akashic record readings, and I'm mainly now working with the energy body and helping people. What happened to me, Gail, is, and I can't remember if I've always been able to do it. I don't know sometimes anymore. I've been through so many things. But I'm able to read soul.
Yes.
So I can. actually see, I can actually see and connect with person on a soul level. I can read what's happening. I can read what they're going through. And because I can do that, I can get right to the core of what is the problem and help them to shift it. Yeah.
There was I will have your description on our YouTube channel, but just for the listeners who might be just listening at home when they got a pen and pencil or whatever, could you say your website so that they'd be able to, and just say it slow so in case anyone's writing it down as you're speaking.
Mm-hmm. So it's www.london Theta Healer. That's THETHA. Is that right?
Okay,
HEALER.
okay.
Dot co.uk.
Yes. In fact, I'm going to repeat it just in case. Uh, the website is LONDONTHEALER.CU.UK.
Yes, dot .co.
No, it
No,
says CU on your CU.
Theta Healer. It should be dot .co.uk.
Yes,
Okay,
.UK.
right, okay, yeah.
And it works.
Yeah, and it works. It works. Yeah, when you go there, it will load.
Yes.
Hopefully.
And I would like to know if there's any more words of wisdom or anything you would like to share with our listeners today before this is our 73rd show, listeners. We're very excited.
Oh, it's
So
exciting.
anything that, any pieces, whatever comes to you that you'd like.
Oh my God. The world is magical. You can't ever you can't imagine the things that are possible and that are going on and that do happen on all dimensions. I mean, this reality that we live in, this physical thing here, is just it's just a piece of what's really happening. And all this movement through dimensions and energy, and it's all true. Um, it's all true. I think black magic is rare. It is rare and it's not random. So I don't want to, scare anyone. It is a minority. It's a minority. But I just want people to understand that it does exist and it is real.
I believe that. I know that to be true.
Yeah, well, yeah, you would. Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Yeah. Mm. So, yeah.
And anything else? We'll leave on a higher note than the black
Oh,
man.
yeah, no, absolutely. We've got to leave on a higher note, of course. I actually that you are more powerful than any of it. You are more powerful than any of it. I mean, you are God. You're a piece of God. God, if God created this whole world and this universe, and that's a piece of you, just think what you can create. You can create so much. And I'm realizing that now. Well, I've always known that, but now I'm, rising up. I feel like I'm a bit like the phoenix. It's like, okay, rising up from the ashes, um and now it's like I understand everything more. I understood it before this happened because I was spiritual. I was never really asleep, to be honest, never really asleep. But now it's like, um I'm not only awake, but I'm discerning, and
Well,
I'm more calculated, but in a good way.
mhm. I I just feel I have to say this, even though this may not be in your thoughts at all.
Mm.
But have you ever possibly played with the idea of going back and doing more film documentary making, especially about this area of what we're speaking about now?
Well, actually, so many people say that to me. I'm absolutely going to go back and make films.
Great.
Um, but you know what it's I'm at this um I have this thinking where I'm in between because it's like I'm going to make films, but I don't it's like part of me now does not want to focus on something like black magic
Mhm.
because I don't want to put energy into it.
Right.
Um and I realize now how I'm different if I'm going to approach films. So I liked what I did before, which was, okay, I went to places which were more disadvantaged and brought the beauty out. But actually, I don't even want to focus on the disadvantage now. I want to make films about amazing possibilities because that's all I want to put my energy into.
I see something about beauty, like
Yeah,
that you would make films about beauty and like
yeah,
very positive,
yeah.
positive, energetic, beauty feeling films.
Yes. Yeah, no, absolutely. And I always did do that. I wanted to bring beauty to places where it wasn't seen or to bring it out. And I forgot what I was going to say now, but I definitely realized whereas before I would be focusing on NGOs and there was a part of me where I wanted to work for the UN because I've got a master's in international global security. So I wanted to go into like corruption, global corruption, because I'm an investigative mind.
Yes.
And but I'm so happy it never worked out because I'm thinking like, what? I mean, I don't want to feed that,
Mhm.
you know? It's about feeding the opposite and creating the opposite now. Um, and I think that the part of the reason I had this spell on me was because I am a big energy and I was doing so much good in the world and so much, and whatever dark forces or anything, they didn't want it. And so I was knocked down on that level and on the other level. And I'm at a place now where when I'm going to go and make films, I am I'm not even going to be in that arena because my energy will be above any of that density.
Yes.
So I want to create films on that different vibration. And I'm not sure if that includes black magic.
And what people you will meet on the way,
Right. Yeah.
whether they're collaborators or people that you partner
Right.
with to make the films, or the
Yeah.
places that you'll go to create the films.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
uh,
Yeah.
I'm excited. I'm looking forward to at some point hearing something out that you're gonna say, and my new
Yeah.
film will be coming out
Yeah.
today.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't wait. We'll have to get you on front rows.
Oh, yes,
Yeah.
I can't wait.
Yeah. Yeah.
I may be in England in September for a
Oh,
conference.
lovely. Oh
It,
God, we have to meet up. We'll have to meet
so,
up.
oh yes, there's so many. I have this one woman. Her name is Amanita Mascara. That's her whole name on her when she writes comments, and she has not missed one of my 73 shows.
Oh,
So, and I
okay.
told her I was having you as a guest today and looking forward to it. And so whenever I get there, I have to meet up with her and you and a half a dozen other wonderful people that I've been speaking with in there. And also,
Oh,
it seems to me like I had no idea that England was such a, but I guess that's where the Theosophical Society began, I think. Like it's really
mhm.
been a place of spiritual searching and,
Oh
for
yeah.
time, and there seems to be a lot of people there very interested in paranormal things and experiences, and they seem open and, I think what a wonderful, anyways, and I'm grateful that they're my second, largest audience, so
Yeah. Oh, yeah, no, absolutely. I think the British are very metaphysical.
Yes.
We've got the whole magical ancestral stuff going on in is it Avebury and Glastonbury, and I mean everywhere. Once you get out of London, in all of the green fields and the trees, I mean the energy is ancient. Yeah, I mean
Uh,
London itself is also ancient, carries a lot of high vibrations in the countryside.
so do you live in the city then?
Yeah, I'm in the density.
You're in the density, right? But
Yeah,
then you can
yeah,
always go out into the country. I live in the
yeah,
country because I
yeah.
couldn't handle the densities. But I grew up, I mean, I was born in Manhattan. I don't think it gets any denser than
Oh gosh,
that.
yeah, yeah. Well, and
Well,
so now you're what a contrast. Now you're in the country. Right.
yes. Well, oh, I knew I left there when I was 15. I knew that I was not a city, but I didn't like the idea of so much people around me. I knew I needed to be with trees and I came to California and there was trees and I was sitting by a creek and I went back to New York and I said, I can't live like this anymore. I have to go back to the
Yeah,
creek. And
yeah.
I've been in the house I live in now for almost 47 years
Oh, lovely.
surrounded
Oh,
by trees and orchard and I'm very close to town, so it's not like their children didn't grow up in the woods or anything. But
yeah,
they had nature all around them, and then you get in the car and you go to school or wherever you have to go.
yeah.
So it was a good,
Lovely.
nice life for them. So I'm
Yeah,
gonna close our show now. If
lovely.
we're good, are we good?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. We're good. Thank you so
All
much.
right. Thank you so much. And if just hold on for a sec while I say our goodbye for us. So I want to thank all you listeners for listening on our 73rd show today here with Jade. And I want to thank my daughter Nancy and my son Richard for producing and putting my show on all the different sites. I want to thank my husband for always proofreading my descriptions. And I want to thank all you listeners for being there and sticking by our side. Have a wonderful, wonderful week. And yes, it's summer, so enjoy your summer. And we'll see you at the next show. And remember, share all your stories because stories can heal. Bye.
Thank you.